Today, we are announcing the indictment of 4 individuals responsible for the 2014 hack.
Accounts for Adult Friend Finder and Penthouse.com have been hacked.
There is growing fallout today after a hack at Marriott exposed the information.
So I didn't set out to write a book about hackers and hacking. I went to pick my daughter up from preschool. She was playing with another little girl, a relatively new student to the school. And while the girls were playing, I started talking to the mom. She said, "What do you do?" I said, "I'm a writer." I talked about some of my books and my articles. And then I said, "What do you do?" And she said, "Well, tomorrow morning I've got to break into a bank." And I said, "Whoa, that's a job. How does that work? Could you say more?" And, you know, over more play dates, more conversations, I got to know her better and realized that she was the CEO of this white hat hacking company that people hire to break into them, to test their security or to get help if they've already been broken into.
Typically, when an organization is hacked, an enormous percentage of the time, it is because of failure of authentication. So authentication means how you verify a person's identity. That was the case.
So my book is called Breaking and Entering: The Extraordinary Story of a Hacker Called Alien. It's the true story of a female hacker called Alien and the birth of our information insecurity age, sort of how we got to the world of hacking and hackers and professional espionage and technological exploitation that we're in today. Over the last 20 years, we have become more and more aware that we've put our major elements of our society, our culture, our economy, our politics onto network computer systems. And the systems and the institutions we rely on are vulnerable to hackers and hacking. But we're still at a funny space where we don't have a face to hackers. We're stuck in either teenager in a hoodie, faceless foreign agent, or Matthew Broderick in war games, or Angelina Jolie in hackers. So the idea that a hacker could be a grown-up or a professional or even a good guy or girl is something that's new to a lot of people. And so I saw this opportunity to take a topic we're all concerned about and aware of and put a face on it and tell the story from the insider's point of view.
Like, where are you today? We saw your first breaking and entering. In that sense, where are you today?
Sure, it's been a long journey. I'm the CEO of 2 companies now. I have a cybersecurity consulting firm named LMG out in Montana, and I'm also the CEO for a cybersecurity training company out in Iowa. And it's just really been fascinating to see so many people grow and mature in their careers and help other people steal stuff and write reports about it, and help companies that have gotten hacked get back on their feet.
They'll also do a variety of other services like digital hostage negotiations. Say you have machines infected by what they call ransomware. Your information is encrypted. You can't get it. The bad guys want, $100,000 in Bitcoin to get your information back to you. How do you proceed? Is that true? Will it work? How do you have proof of life for your own data? All those kind of tricky modern age issues that we're dealing with today, they'll help hold your hand if you need that too. So they're called white hat hackers, or hackers for good. So Alien's story starts when she's 17 years old. She's a freshman at MIT, and she falls into, sometimes literally falls into, this really secretive world of physical access hacking, which at MIT, hacking is this 100-year-old tradition. It predates computers, and it refers to exploring buildings and other built spaces. So it might be going up an elevator shaft. It might be going along a ledge. It might be climbing through steam tunnels. It might be going on some of the great domes at MIT. And this has an outward physical manifestation that the public can see sometimes when they, quote unquote, pull a hack. And a hack is sort of an elaborate, ingenious prank, like getting a working police car on top of a dome at MIT, or making the tallest building on campus into a playable Tetris game. In the dark, in secret, picking locks, dodging security, getting in and out before anyone sees them. But going hacking is just exploring for its own sake. And that's something you might do nightly, you might do weekly, and you're just trying to get into hidden, forbidden, secretive spaces that no one else has discovered. And that's a part that the public would never see. And what's amazing is it has this direct analog to the kind of hacking we're more familiar with today, getting into hidden spaces on computers and computer systems. She moves on to computer hacking and network security. So she becomes, in a short order, one of the students and administrators in charge of trying to keep the network at MIT safe. So this is one of the world's foremost and most sophisticated network computer environments. It's MIT's computer network, but at the same time, it's totally open. It's not like a military system or a corporate system where you're trying to close it off. It's supposed to be used for exploring, for academic research. And these cutting edge students are using it for great research, but they're also using it maybe to pull pranks, to explore other computer systems, and outsiders, meanwhile, are attacking it too. So the same kind of worms, viruses that were making so many systems vulnerable in the early 2000s are attacking MIT too. She goes from MIT to Los Alamos National Laboratory, birthplace of the atomic bomb, and she's not working on security per se there, but her computer skills get way more advanced under an amazing mentor she has there. She moves back to Boston, ends up doing computer security, network security for a hospital system. And that's amazing because the computer systems are not just computers, they're medical devices, they're operating theaters, they're everything we rely on to save lives, to communicate even between wards. And so a virus can be not just in a computer system or an individual, it could take out like the whole neonatal ICU. So there's literal lives at stake in computer security there. Next, she goes to what's called a penetration testing firm. And penetration testing means these people that you hire to try to break into your systems, to see how you're vulnerable and to patch them before the bad guys can get in. And that can be physical breaking and entering, as she did her freshman year, and that can be virtual, using computers and computer networks. So when she's working there, she does everything from talking her way into bank vaults, stealing computers from CEOs' offices and corporate headquarters, to hacking the reservation system of a major airline, or testing security for defense, major military suppliers and contractors, speaking at the Pentagon. Finally, she transitions to being a freelancer out on her own, forming her own company, and then grows that up from something she's the only operator to now it's a 30-person kind of operation. Now, this whole field grows up as we move so many aspects of our society online and we build networked systems into the basis of our government and our big businesses. And all of a sudden, these places need to protect themselves from criminals, from adversaries, sometimes from their own government, sometimes from other governments. And this information security industry is born. It basically doesn't exist, or it's teeny by the time she graduates from college. About 15 years later, today, it's like a $140 billion industry. And it's not just a giant industry, it has view into every other aspect of our society because they're the ones testing our banks, our hospitals, our transportation systems, our law firms, our government agencies. So they kind of know intimately where we're vulnerable and they can inform us. So that was another really important thing for me, is I wanted to shine light on these good guy hackers, these white hat hackers. So through Alien and her work, because we're going to need to be able to listen to them, to be able to consult them, to understand how to take advantage of the advantages of technology, but not be so vulnerable to being totally wiped out because of these existing holes. So my research process for breaking and entering was, first of all, obviously talking and interviewing Alien a ton. Then I was trying to follow in her footsteps. So I went to MIT, I visited her old dorms, I talked to almost every person who's still alive from those college days of hers. I went to Los Alamos National Laboratory. I went to giant hacker conventions in Las Vegas where there's 20,000 hackers in town for the weekend, trading tips, partying together, giving talks. I went to DC where I was able to speak to ex-NSA employee about sort of the professional side there and how the business has gone from a government agency to, in fact, a big business and industry, at least in that area. And I went to New York where there's several scenes in the book too, including another hacker convention. And finally, of course, here in Missoula where some of the story ends up, where you're trying to build a high-tech company going around the world from a small town in Montana, which is kind of amazing too. Another example of, having my mind blown was going to Vegas and seeing, wow, this isn't a small group of people, and this isn't an antisocial, isolated group of people, and this isn't a monoculture of one kind of person. I'm with 20,000 hackers in Caesar's Palace, in Las Vegas, and there's car hackers taking apart a Tesla. There's Internet of Things hackers that are taking apart smart fridges and dolls and making them say funny things. There's social engineers, which are hackers that are working on hacking the human mind, manipulating people. And they're doing live contests where they're calling like Verizon stores and trying to get employees to give confidential information or give them control of their network just by talking to them. I went to a hacker enthusiast gathering in the Nevada desert where they're setting up a DIY shooting range with drone-driven skeet, and they built their own cannons. And that's amazing too, and it's like a camp out. And I also went to kind of corporate hacking things where it's fancy swag bags and the bubbly is flowing and they rented out a club. So you see these different sides of hacking. I'd say a final site that I found really mind-blowing for me at least was going to Los Alamos National Laboratory. This is one of the world's foremost research laboratories. It's also a very high security site because of the nuclear research there. And it's in, the middle of the New Mexico desert. So I say it's like going to the Grand Canyon, and it's, sites are like that, the canyon walls, the birds flying overhead, the petroglyphs from ancient civilizations. You turn a corner and there's MIT, and it's under, armed guard. And so that's pretty mind-blowing too, and that could be scary in its own way. I think when you think of hackers, it's important to see a diversity of hackers. They say, we improve security by testing it. And that can be counterintuitive. We can think anyone who breaks into our systems is making us less safe. But they're breaking into systems if, I talk to lock pickers, for example, and they say, if we can pick your lock, it wasn't a good lock. You want a lock we can't pick. You want us testing these locks. So, that's something I think that's really important to realize. I mean, another analogy that Alien uses is like a doctor when they, hit your knee to test your reflexes. It might hurt, but they're making sure that your body and your system works. And she's like, when I break into banks, they might not like it, but if I can get into the bank vault, so can someone else. And we need to get to a point where when I test your reflexes, I can't get in. Now, it's of course very scary because she and her team are very successful, but it's also perhaps reassuring they are getting hired by these important institutions. At least people know that they need this testing so they can fill in those holes. So you can think of it a little bit perhaps like a vaccine. You hire the hackers to break into you so you can be protected from criminal or adversarial power struggle assault. I think I want people who read Breaking and Entering to realize that hacking is a lot more diverse and hackers are a lot more diverse than we've thought today. So it can be physical breaking and entering, it can be lockpicking, it can be exploring for its own sake, it can be human hacking, social engineering, manipulating people, and it can be the kind of computer hacking on keyboards that our stereotype is. Hackers at the same time have grown up, they've professionalized. I met Alien, the subject of my book, when I went to pick my daughter up from preschool. So a hacker is not just the teenager in his parents' basement. The hacker can be the mom across from you at the playground with the juice boxes for her kids. And she can be a very high-powered professional that's going to break into a bank the next morning.